So in order to enhance our quality of life, we need to have conversations about how much we're getting, how am I relative to my peers, and have those tough conversations. I mean, there's an appropriate time and place for that, but we should be talking about it.
Hello from the AIA North Carolina Center for Architecture and Design, and welcome to this episode of Talking to the Wall, presented by Thinc Strategy. Talking to the Wall is a series of episodes in which we answer questions that it seems nobody really wants to answer or even talk about. These questions were generated through research within the design and construction industry, and we have several of these episodes with each one dedicated to one question. My name is Walt Teague. I was practicing architect for 33 years, and currently I'm the creative director for Thinc Strategy. Our topic for today is compensation. This is an interesting and a hot topic at most any time, and I have an outstanding guest here to discuss this with us, Richard Alsop. Richard is a practicing architect, has been for over 20 years. He's vice president, managing principal for architectural engineering firm HDR, overseeing architectural offices throughout the Southeast United States. So, Richard, thank you very, very much for being with us.
Thank you for the invitation, Walt. Look forward to the conversation.
Excellent. So the question of this episode that we want to talk about is, how is my compensation decided and by whom? And I can reflect back when I first started. That was a question I had and always wanted to know the answer. So this is perhaps a question that a lot of younger design professionals or emerging professionals might have as they're progressing in their career. In talking about this, though, let's kind of ease into it and talking about why compensation is so difficult to talk about. It seems like a lot of folks are reluctant to talk about that.
And I get that, and I think the trepidation likely is tied to their feeling of are they worthy, or are they valued enough by their bosses and by their supervisors to have that kind of meaningful conversation. So I take a much broader view, and I would say, why shouldn't we be talking about it, right? If you think about the way society has functioned, all of our core necessities, food, clothing, shelter, all revolve around money, right? And typically for most of us, the only way we can earn a living is through the work that we do. So in order to enhance our quality of life, we need to have conversations about how much we're getting, how am I relative to my peers, and have those tough conversations. I mean, there's an appropriate time and place for that, but we should be talking about it.
And I think that's changed somewhat through the years, haven't it? I remember when I was first starting out, and 30 years ago, I mean, compensation wasn't something that you went out and talked that much openly, but it seems now, especially with younger professionals, they're more willing to talk about it.
I think that's true, and I still don't think we're as transparent as we want to be, but I think the current generation that's coming into the profession are much more willing and much more expecting to have conversations about their compensation and are sharing information peer-to-peer, and I think that's fantastic.
So let's talk about job titles. How does job titles affect compensation?
Yeah, I mean, I would say generally speaking, job titles are affected by compensation. Obviously, the bigger the title, the more responsibilities you have for driving really business metrics and business success. So obviously, if you're not doing well, the business doesn't do well, and the business goes in a different direction. So if you're driving success, that's tied primarily to your compensation. And of course, the more years you've been involved in a position, the more likely you're going to earn more revenue in that position because you become more credible to your clients. And credibility is everything in our profession. You know, we're licensed to protect health, safety, and welfare on the architecture side, and the more experience we have in doing that, the more benefit we have to our clients who hire us.
How does one ask for a raise? But I can remember it being such a difficult thing to go to my superior and talk about, and ask for a raise.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard enough to talk about compensation in general for people, much less have the next level of conversation. Okay, here's where I am now. How do I get to here? And I would say, I think I alluded that there's a proper time and place to have that conversation. And really, it's the annual review that we should be having with all of our supervisors. In fact, I have one with my supervisor about how we're doing. and let the compensation be and the raise portion be a natural offshoot of conversations about your performance, your professional goals. And really, I think we take that opportunity to say, what other parts of the profession can I also add value to, right? If you're on the design side, the production side of things, there's also the operations side of the house, which is where I have my hat, and there's the marketing side of the house. And talk to your supervisor about getting involved in some of those other aspects of the firm. Again, that adds value to the firm itself, and it really expands your professional capabilities. So you'll find that some of those other positions like operations and marketing have different earning trajectories too. So you might be earning X in a production level and Y at one of the operations and marketing level. But if you can blend those two, then you can go just about any direction you want to. So if you're sold that you want to be in production, that's fantastic. We need good technical architects. But don't turn a blind eye to what else might be available for you in your firm. Yeah.
So here's another aspect about compensation that I think we need to talk about, and that is, when we think about compensation, too many people just think about salary. And that's compensation is way more than just salary. Let's talk about the compensation package.
So yeah, typically it's a great point. Typically salary, which is the only one of those compensation pieces that is really truly negotiable. A lot of the others are likely fixed, but they're important to your overall package, right? So there's insurance, medical, dental, vision. Your employer will likely pay a portion, if not all of the premiums with that insurance. You're still responsible for the co-pays and the deductibles, but depending on where you go, that is an offer that they can give you based on.
And they may not be aware of the value of that.
Absolutely.
I mean,
it's only getting more expensive. Right?
There's a tremendous cost to those to that benefit. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The other is a retirement savings plan, right? A lot of employers will match your contributions up to a percentage of your income. So I would say if you're able to contribute as much as you can to make sure you get the match, don't leave that free money on the table. So that's part of your overall compensation package. There's vacation time. Right, so the paid holidays, of course, then you've got your PTO, your personal time off, and within that bucket, it can be aggregated as sort of sick, or we're going on the wellness side of things now, wellness time off and your personal vacation time. And typically, the more you work at the firm, the more days you get. So each one of those is paid. So some of the other lesser typical compensation pieces might be disability insurance, a life insurance policy taken out on you, telecommuting, remote from home. That's obviously a benefit to you to be able to do that. And then tuition reimbursement for some people who want to continue their studies. Some firms will continue to pay for your schooling. So to your point, I think it makes sense to look at the entire compensation package to really get the best value for you. But again, knowing the only thing you can really hone in on and negotiate likely is the salary piece of that.
Are there other resources out there on compensation that others should know about?
Another great question. So it's not as transparent as I think it still needs to be. But either AIA has a compensation report. They have a salary calculator that you can go online and check your job title in your region and see what your peers are saying that they're earning, reporting that they're earning. I would say your network of colleagues is, assuming they're not inflating their own numbers, is a good way to sort of judge where you are. If you're working through a recruiter, recruiters will have market data they can share with you on the salary ranges that you should be expecting. And then your own, if you're within your firm and you're having discussions about your annual review or at your annual review, they should also have market data they can share with you about what your range may be. I would be wary if they're not willing to share some of that openly with you, but not all firms are sort of that transparent yet.
Let's take this back to our original question of the day. How's my compensation decided and by whom? Give me a good, concise answer to that question.
So at HDR, your compensation is decided by supply and demand. We obviously need that individual in our office. And then it comes down to what will the market bear for that? Because every time I pay someone, I've got to mark up their number by what we call a multiplier. Sometimes that's anywhere between the high 2s and the low 3s. So if I've got to mark up your salary by 300% to bill my client, that obviously impacts my ability to win that work, right? And to pay you a salary or to pay anyone a salary. So it's market driven. we're still in an environment where we're competing against other firms, so we've got to be competitive price-wise, but we want great talent because we want to win the work. So it is a supply and demand, and it's a market-related issue.
So it can be a very complex formula that managers have to work through in making that determination.
Correct.
How much can we pay someone for a certain position? So thank you very much for being here. I think that this gives a lot more insight into this question about compensation. It's been very helpful. Thank you for being here. Once again, we provided you with a number of links. We made reference to decisions about hiring being an important component of this. There's going to be another episode on hiring, specifically on hiring. So I would encourage you to seek out all of these episodes. If you just like and subscribe, you'll be able to find all of these episodes that are being created for Talking to the Wall. Thank you again for being with us. Talking to the Wall is presented by Thinc Strategy. Thinc Strategy is a North Carolina business, but operates throughout the United States, providing business strategic planning and services for the design and construction industry, helping them to grow, perform, and transition with their ownership. Thank you once again, Richard.
Thank you very much, Walt. I appreciate the conversation.
Absolutely.